What's going on, everybody? You've got the cardboard coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, today we got a very special guest on the podcast here. We have Mr. Ryan Curtis, aka I Saw a Sasquatch on Instagram. Ryan, brother, I have had the pleasure of meeting you on the internet and then in person. And if there's one thing I can tell you all is that this guy is one of the most genuine people you will ever meet in the hobby. And fortunately, the hobby has kind of found its way to give back to you in the last few months. And I'm super excited to hear all about that. But first and foremost, welcome, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I got you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I'm excited to have this conversation. Like I said, we've chatted before, we've hung out in the past. I mean, we really hung out in Atlanta, which was hilarious.
So much fun.
It was a good time. And I would like a little bit more of a backstory, and I'm sure the audience would as well. Like, so where does collecting start for you?
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
collecting for me started when I was about 5 years old. I remember going back to Value City Furniture in Indy. That's where I used to get a lot of like my original Upper Deck baseball hangers, or other Toys R Us or other card shops where my mom would give me a stupid low allowance. Like I don't know, you get $2 a week, and I could get you 2 packs. And then throw them in your binder, and your other friends were collecting too. And now we're older and we have more money, and those binders now have evolved to slabs and card shows that are abroad. And yeah, but I started pretty young, and started my own kids pretty young, because it was such a positive influence and impact on my life.
I love that. So you've got kids. How many?
I have two boys. They're 6 and 8.
Love it. And when did they start collecting?
Oh, I threw them at it really early on. Yeah. I have videos from like old school. My YouTube channel has been around since 2009. And it's funny because it's like a time capsule for me, because I can go back to like my firstborn and like doing mail days with him. And then when he got older and he started having gibberish, and then it turned into full thoughts. And now he's like talking back to me in video.
I
So
love that.
it's awesome.
I love that. And I think, we talk so much about like the negative influence that like social media is. And I just think that, I mean, for instance, like that, obviously there's no amount of money in the world that can help replace that, like, and
No.
it's nice that you had the initiative back then to record and with purpose, and that purpose being sports cards, and that sports cards are such a, relatively large part of your family's life. I think that's really cool actually. And I'm sure that many other people maybe who listen or aren't even listening right now, but maybe later, it resonates with them as well.
And it gives us something to do right together, especially with the age gap and our size gap. And there's so much you can do. And I coach a lot of other sports, but now I'm getting into tennis, or getting them into tennis. I play that on the side. I'm in a league. So just it's one more thing that we can do together that I think is like so wholesome and healthy for us to do. And I think they'll look back on it in a positive way.
And so when it comes to the prerequisites for kids, like how do you explain the hobby? Because like I think that's like a massive issue with kind of where we're at in the hobby. It's just like a lack of
Hmm.
education. So like what kind of things do you preach to your kids, and maybe that can help translate into other parents having conversations with their younger loved ones?
Yeah, it's a great question. So ours started out with kind of like how I got into it. It's like my mom is a huge sports fan, and now I'm a huge sports fan, and now I'm like conditioning, um, and training these young adults like you're also going to be sports fans, at least until you're 18. You get out of my house. Until then, on Sundays we're watching football. We got the Avs on when they're on. We got Pacers. We got all those other people on. I'm building them to appreciate other sports and athletics in general, and when that's good for the body and the mind. And so then when I have, say, a cheap stack of baseball cards that I went through, and they're fiddling through it and they're finding our Cubs. I'm like, yeah, those Cubs. Like, yeah, you should like that because I told you to. Eventually, I want you to like veer off and find your own niche and in
Yeah.
it. But until then, I'm conditioning them. And obviously, until they're a certain age, and there's other people who have different like financial dispositions in their homes, like ours. I don't have a ton of expendable income, so like they're playing around with a lot of lower end stuff right now, but they're growing to appreciate it. And I'm thinking trade up, they appreciate that just the same. And I don't know. So the advice I'm giving is just general exposure. When they ask questions, like expose them to everything. A part of like I have a setup in my garage that has, supplies, and it has my value boxes, and it has, so I want them to know, like, okay, well, that card, like I tested out my son the other day. I was like, hey, can you bring me like a soft sleeve and this? And he's like, oh, I know exactly where those are at. And I know exactly what you said. So it's just like equipping them. It doesn't have to be all in one sitting. It should be like over time, and in any positive thing that you want them to take on, like you should just be like repeatable, consistent, um, and just like there's no dumb questions. Let them ask questions. I try to expose them to card shops and trade nights, and very minimally as they're getting older, to trade shows, because that is a lot for them to take on. I think that's last year we did Spartanburg, South Carolina, and that's probably the biggest show I've taken them to. And they were like halfway through the show, they're like, "Can we go?" And I said, "I get it. I know it's a lot. It's a lot of people, a lot of tables."
It's a lot for me,
Uh,
man.
right. Like so that was a 200 table show, and we were halfway through it, and they're like, "I really want to go." And I said, "Okay, but just like let me speed around this extra 100, and I'll take you to Charleston."
I love that.
So just finding stuff that excites them. So like my older son, he's really into all sports, and then my younger son, he humors me with all the other sports, but he's more into like the TCG. And I'm like, just my passion doesn't have to be theirs. And once you find theirs, lean into it, and make them feel heard and supported, I think is important.
What kind of TCG?
Pokemon mostly. My youngest, he's really into Pokemon.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that like, from like the sports cards perspective, we just don't even comprehend how many people like have deep ties to Pokemon, man.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember when the series one packs were at my Toys R Us for like 250 a pack. And gosh, I remember I was like 12 or 13, and I was actually babysitting in my neighborhood. And I remember getting a check and cashing that check at a bank one, which is now JP Morgan Chase. And I remember going to this Toys R Us and like just buying out all these, and like filling up a binder with all these series one that we just were like casually, haphazardly throwing into our binders. Now looking back, and I'm like, I could have paid off this house if I just like even just kept them sealed. But
Every, everyone says that though, right? Like it's like that's why they're so expensive right now. It's because they were so readily
right.
available and now they're gone.
Yeah.
It's the same stories with like mantles and bike spokes and like
Yeah. 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 100%.
that's why they were just so readily available and it was just like I mean they were meant to be messed with. They were like cards. They
Yeah.
came in bubble gum packs and
You were
it was
supposed you were
like
supposed to you were supposed
yeah,
to play with them. Yeah.
yeah.
Like, and then you get TCG where it's like, no, it's an actual game. So it makes the people who their whole life, like me, like kept things in top loaders, they're like, no, you're supposed to take it out and learn the game. And maybe when you win that hand, just like, put it down. So no, TCG was really cool because I've been doing all sports, my life up to that point, and it was just like something that was on TV, and it was like very relevant in pop culture, and it just helped add another layer of differentiation and like kind of what sparked joy for you in that hobby. And now it's like we have darn near everything in this house. Like we have Digimon and Magic the Gathering and Star Wars, and just as it comes out, we're just like, cool, that's interesting.
I
Not to
love
say
it.
we're gonna like lean into it hard, but it's just like, giving everyone in the industry their flowers. Like, hell, I got a whole stack of like piggy banks over here. I'm like, what am I doing now? I don't know.
Piggy banks?
All I introduced is I got this yesterday. Yeah, dude, I'll show you this first. I've showed this to no one yet. I got this yesterday.
Ooh.
So they're all one of one. So this one is Caitlin Clark featuring Indiana Fever, uh, LeBron James, and Diana Taurasi, who are all leaders in their sport, which I thought super cool. I never would have thought like 2 years ago. I've seen piggy banks floating around. Now that I've seen one, like everything in this hobby, I have an addictive personality. I'm like, well, I'm screwed.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Talk, talk to me about so we mentioned briefly that you've been doing a lot of shows recently.
Yeah.
Is this something that you've been consciously making an effort to? Like I know that and I want to dive into if you guys don't know, this man sitting across from me right now is actually one of the I mean he's the person who broke the LeBron James one of one Bronny Superfractor, which is currently on sale at PWCC. I believe there's 3 days left while we're recording this, 2 days left while we're recording
Dude.
this. So by the
Yeah.
time it releases, look at that. See, balloons.
Huzzah.
2 days
That
out.
was fun.
Yeah, yeah. 2 days left. And yeah, I'm excited to see where that finishes. I think it's sitting at 25,000 right now. And I do want to dive into that, but I do first want you to talk about what's going on with you, where these card shows coming from. I know that you mentioned you went to card shows in the past, but it seems like you're traveling a little bit more. Is that something you're consciously making an effort to do?
Yeah, I'll say I've been doing like card shows, but mostly on like the very, very local, regional level. Really, most of my life. It wasn't until I got divorced and moved to Tennessee, and then suddenly had 50% bandwidth with my custody with my kids. Just to be transparent with everyone who's either going through that or gone through that. Um, I tried to fill my void with healthier outlets, and I would say the card industry provides. Like there's always something. There's always a trade. There's always a show. There's other. I don't know. I think about it like a church. Like you can go to any new city and you should be embraced in said church, right? That's like our cardboard church. When we go to
Yeah.
these, you're speaking the same language, you understand, the ins and the outs. So that was really nice place for me to go, especially during COVID. I moved during COVID from Colorado. So I came to this community where I didn't know a lot of people, and there wasn't really, and there still is to this day, like not a really strong show scene here in Knoxville. So like I had to, happiness is a choice. You and I talk about the mental health aspect all the time, and happiness is a choice. I went to go find it. And I was starting. Gosh, last year I think I did 29 shows, but they were mostly like the small. I know. I take off my hat. You see all my gray, but those smaller regional shows just weren't as fruitful. It's good. Like that's where my heart's always going to gravitate is like the small guy, the smaller show. I was joking about when I was in Burbank. Somebody at Tops was talking about how Burbank was like a small regional show, and I was like, no. Look at my show team from the last year. If it didn't have Bergville or something at
Yeah.
the end of it, like I wasn't going to it. So this year, I lost my ass last year. I lost my ass because I was buying into stuff that I thought was at the right time, the right player, and then like the industry was doing a bit of this.
What kind of
And
stuff are we talking about?
oh, I'm talking about like God, I can go back to like the Shipshawana show right before the NFL season. I was buying like Mahomes and Hurts and like good players that started out the season well too. And I was buying shorter print, scarcer stuff, and I was buying it under comps, and it didn't matter. By the time I got it, and I'd flip it a couple weeks later. I mean, it was tanking. The whole like that's what happened. I took a bath last year and consequently had to like rob Peter to pay Paul in my own home to keep the lights on. So I had to go into this year um, with a much different intentionality of saying like, okay, I'm going to be a lot choosier on what I go to. I'm not actually going to be on the other side of the table for a while. I wanted to take a break from that because that is a slog. It is a grind. Everyone who sets up at shows, tip of the cap, like you're the reason why the shows exist, and it's a grind. And I enjoy it, but I enjoy all aspects of it now. So like I enjoy being the dealer, I enjoy being the buyer, and now I kind of also enjoy being like I don't know, like I was in Dallas, kind of the jester in the room, and just trying to like be your shepherd of fun. So this year I
I
was just like, hey,
I hate
uh,
being the dealer.
yeah, I mean, there's parts of it that are cool because
I
from
can't stand it, bro. And I appreciate other people for like I mean like you said, someone
yeah,
needs to do it, right? But I can't just sit there and just wait, you know? I don't know. It's not
yeah,
me. It's not like I'm very like action oriented. Also, for those of you who know me and maybe you don't, and that's cool, and you can maybe learn a little bit more about me, like I get overstimulated quite quickly. And so, like, when I need to like dip for
yeah,
6 or 7 minutes, like it's just not exactly convenient when you have, hundreds or even thousands of dollars in inventory right there. And like, yeah, you hope that the next guy can watch your stuff, and maybe you're set up with someone and they're fortunate. But there's always a part of you that's always thinking about like what's left there. You know what I mean? And I
yeah,
just feel like at no point can I think I set up once, maybe twice, and I just could not relax the entire time. And I was like, man, this
yeah.
is like agony for me.
Well, and I realized that last year, probably about halfway through the year, I saw like some of the greatest grinders, little hustlers in this hobby. It's like these like 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds. I was like, man, you know what I need? Because I don't have a partner, right? I'm a one-man show. So it's like, hey, I either need like a really good counterpart and a partner that can like match my energy and match my drive. And we have like common goals, or I need to like be able to hire one of these like 13-year-olds or 14-year-olds, but hey, I need you to like hustle this card around the room. Or like, hey, I want to take a break. I need you to run the table. I can trust you while I go take a look in the room. Um, I think that's balance you need because I'm the same way. Like being a dealer, I love card shows because you don't know what's going to be there that day. You don't know what's going to be there. You don't know what's going to show up. You don't know what deal is floating around the room or what like networking opportunity you might have. Like there's just so many like really cool, exciting unknowns. Um, but in the dealer role, you are anchored in a different kind of way. You also have dealers that come up to you and people like who are looking for liquidity. you kind of have a greater upper hand than like being on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons to both. So that's why I was going into this year saying like, hey, maybe I have a little bit more of a blend of all three, but what doesn't cost me anything and like keeps me away from like buying, selling, trading maybe necessarily is like trying to lean more into the content side of it, which I started to do kind of at some of the bigger shows this year.
Yeah, I think that that really saves me because I mean, when I was first going to shows, it was you almost feel like a pressure to make a deal because you've like come
Mm-hmm.
all the way here, and I mean, especially if you're a dealer, you have to be making deals constantly, right? But if you're a buyer, you know, you're like, I just came here, I put maybe a fine. There's a financial commitment if you either drove or flew, or I mean, there's always some sort of financial commitment. There's obviously a commitment with time as well, and you're like, I really kind of want to maximize this experience. And like, you know, you said last year you took a bath on a few of those items. Like, I mean, it hurts extra if you had to pay for hotel and flight or
It did.
accommodation
Yeah,
in Canada, right?
I got to board my dog. Like the list. I mean, my average overhead, even for a small, shitty regional show in like Alabama, was like $1,000. If I was gone for a weekend, it's about $1,000. I'm like, that's a huge upswing when like I'm not sitting here with large cash flow in my pocket. I didn't have a ton of inventory. Like I had the right, you know, it comes down to like, oh, here come the balloons again. I don't want to scare you, but uh, it all comes down to time and capital, right? That's everything. And I was like, I had the time, I had the energy, I didn't have the capital, and that's where I was like really running a brick wall. Like I was like, okay, well, maybe next show, you know, I could like not pay this utility, take that money and put it towards, and it just wasn't the math wasn't mathing. And when you're trying to sprint up a vertical hill, most of the time you're gonna keep falling backwards. So this year I just had to like everything, every part of my goal setting. I do a lot of very intentional, like I can send you a picture after this. Like I do a lot of intentional whiteboarding and trying to productize my life. And I said I have to have like my 20 like New Year's Eve going into 2024, 2 years prior, I did this exercise with one of my best friends, Joe, and we were in the exact same place. And that made me want to vomit. And we're like almost in the exact same place, like romantically, financially, this, and that. And I was like, my 2024 has to be different. But in order for that to change, like you have to do things differently. So we whiteboarded the shit out of that this year, and my 2024 looks, smells, and feels different.
I love that, man. I love that. I mean, you know, I'm all about goal setting. You know, I'm all about
Yeah.
pushing like for change. And you know, if something's uncomfortable, it's usually, I mean, it's good one way or the other, right? Like you're learning
Mm-hmm.
something either about yourself or
Yeah.
the world around you. And I think that there's massive positives in that. So kudos to you for like actually having the presence of mind and the perspective to, and also to want to have that dialogue with yourself, right? Like, because there's a lot of times that, I mean, I've gone through this too in points in my life where you're there the next year and you almost don't want to admit that like things are exactly as they were. You have the
Mm-mm.
exact same goals like a year later, and nothing changes. It's not like they're like, okay, this but magnified. It's like, no, no, literally the same goals.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like nothing changes if nothing changes. I couldn't agree more. I and that's why I think, you know, you're putting in so much intentional work in 2024, and I think that you've really, I mean, I think most people who are in the sports card market have kind of seen that, truthfully, or like in the hobby in general. I've seen you, and I think that that's probably has a lot to do with the fact that you're moving intentionally. You know, right down to the fact that I think when you move intentionally, good things happen to you. And if you're the only thing that we can really control in this lifetime is our output, and you're controlling your output, and as a result of that, you almost, I mean, you had the LeBron James superfractor fall in your lap. So like, talk to me about that, man. Like that was a massive card.
Yeah.
It's the first autograph release of LeBron James through Topps since 2008, I think.
Ever since ever, he has never
Ever,
signed with
ever.
Tops.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So and the last
Yeah.
time he had a card with Topps was, I believe, 2008 or 2009. But like
Yeah,
ever, ever
it was his first autograph in 10 years, and previously was only with Upper Deck. This is his first ever with Tops. And
beautiful.
then they didn't do any other parallels. They haven't talked about any other future releases. Like this is for anyone who's like super collecting his autographs, like this is the only one of its kind. And like someone's gonna get fed in 2 days. So
Him and his son, and there was a whole marketing play around this thing too. He there was a commercial featuring him. I remember the
mhm.
grand reveal, which everyone talked about, and they were trying to
Yeah.
figure out, is this is a Fanatics contract? And you know, some people were able to like zoom in and see that it was a script. And I mean, this was a big deal when this card was
Hmm.
even being processed, and now,
Yeah.
fast forward 3 or 4 months, and now we're finally, at the point where this card has been pulled, it's been graded, it's been paraded around by yourself, and is
So
now
so tired.
and
So
is
tired.
now for sale. So talk to me about that process. So, first of all, how did you feel having the ability to break that news?
Man, I felt I was just so blessed and so fortunate, like to be at the right place at the right time with the right connection. And he called me when I was at my son's tennis practice and FaceTimed me and like threw it on the table. And I was like, I got goosebumps every time I think about this story. And for him to be like, I was thinking about it. I want to remain anonymous for at least the time being. And when I'm thinking about people that I follow and I respect and I trust, if you're the first on my list, and I was like, that in itself was like, a lot of our content is like kind of a thankless job, and we're kind of content monkeys sometimes. And to like get that kind of just like earnest and conscientious feedback was super special. Like even without the card, like even to be considered for this person, like I really trust that you would do well in running with this content and helping me broker this deal and just like helping keep my anonymity. That was super special for me. So yeah, the Dave, the fortunate poser that pulled that card, spent $140 on a box of cards and pulled that, and pulled it at home with his wife. And just the story's so beautiful. And like what I love about it is like it gives all the little guys hope, it gives all the little shops hope. Everyone, sometimes there's real Hatfield McCoys between like fanatics like group breakers and the rest of the world. And it was cool to see there was like some balance brought back to the fourth. And to see a collector, like a guy that we rub elbows with at card shows or at your local card shop, just like one of us, I think it's such a great success story for him. And any negativity that I've heard along the way, like I'm squelching it quick and just being like, okay, but like change your narrative, change how you're talking to people, change how you outlook on the world. Like this is nothing but a win. Whoever wins the bid tomorrow or on 2 nights from now, it'll be a person who felt that they spent an appropriate amount of money to get a card that they want in their collection. That's a win. Dave's gonna win either way because anything over $140. He and his wife got a trip to LA already. He got to go to PSA headquarters. Like it's been a movie for him too. Like they've already won. Whatever it ends at, he's gonna win. Fanatics is gonna win. This is great for their brand. This is great for the rebranding of PWCC. Like everybody wins in this scenario, um, and that's what I'm leading into.
I love that. And again, if we talk about the mindset, right? Like it's really easy to, and I found that the situation super interesting too, because it was like right at the height of everyone saying that like breakers get loaded boxes and that all the
Right, right.
and that all the hits come out of breakers, and that boxes are juiced, and there's this grand conspiracy that there's like no one's gonna get a product hit unless it's on like Fanatics Live, and like none of that happened. None of it
I know,
happened.
and
And
Topps
people
admitted to it.
people
Yeah.
were what did Tops
No, I
admit
was
to?
gonna say no. Topps admitted that it was like a worst case scenario for them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
they,
it's
they they told me that at Burbank. I was like, yeah, I mean, like it wasn't done on camera, so you couldn't see the reaction. It wasn't done on Fanatics. Even Cage like poked a little fun at it. He was just like, yeah, obviously he was ripped by Mama Breaks on Fanatics Live, and it's a picture of his shop owner.
yeah.
And I was like, it's kind of the worst case scenario. And then like me, like I'm not a top influencer in the industry, so they're just like, oh, this like, hey, this Joe Blow is over here, like the gatekeeper for like one of the biggest cars we've ever promoted. Like, what's happening?
I mean, I love that though. I love
I
that
love it. I
yeah,
loved every
yeah,
bit of it.
yeah. And that's what I mean, right? It's interesting because a lot of perspectives are that like, everything's already set in stone, and that there's like almost no point in trying, or and I just don't think that's true at all, right? Like
No,
I think that there's a lot of opportunity here still. Like, and I'm not saying to go out and like rip boxes so that you hit it big,
don't
and
do that.
like
Yeah, yeah.
you change the narrative by ripping. Like that's not what we're saying here. Just saying,
No, 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 no.
I think it's much easier to operate in life with the thought process that like it is possible, and this story kind of helped prove that essentially.
Yeah, and that's what we're like. I'm still advocating and rooting him on, and I'm trying to do my best to like not overhype him or the card or the situation, but like I want him to be celebrated the whole way through. Like I want him to feel like the whole community is embracing him because it doesn't happen enough. Like so much in this hobby I talk about, there's a real king of the hill mentality, and there's just no space for it. I'm over here just like that's one of the more irrational things we have going for us. When I'm like, not every card's for everyone, not every scenario is for everyone, but like we can all just like advocate for each other and just like be more positive in our narratives. So, I mean, we're gonna do. I think John, basketball card guy, and I we're gonna host an IG live. I think on Thursday night, like when the hammer drops and post hammer, and we're just gonna cheer him on and root for the best.
I love that. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with John a few times in the last few weeks too, man. He's
Yeah,
you've been going in like the opposite direction of like us. It's like you've been choosing all the other shows.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking. So Nashville. When you were meeting Brady, I was meeting Johnny Manziel. So like, what a problem to have.
I know.
Uh, like, what a great problem to have. That was cool too. But Dallas, I'd actually talked to Daddy Rips. They have a Call Me Daddy podcast, and my friend Alex RMATC and I were on there. I want to say October. We did it virtually like this, and he's like, "Yeah, man, like we don't ever get anyone in the studio." And I was like, "Challenge accepted. Like, don't watch the seeds you plant around me, because I'll water them and I'll make them happen." I was like, "I'll do it." Like that is one of the things. Like when I say I'll do it, I always do it. And I said, "Yeah, I'll aim for the March Dallas Card Show," and that's what we did. And I drove 13 hours to get there, and that was one of the first things we did after we got there.
13
So,
hours. You love those long drives, bro.
I don't, man, but what I don't like more is living in Knoxville and having Tyson McGee International Airport be stupid expensive to go anywhere. So like the round trip to Dallas was going to be like lowest was going to be like $1,000, and I was like, well, I'm going to drive. I'm going to make it. Get caught
Really?
up on get caught up on podcasts and get caught up on phone calls and like I don't know, me in the car. Like I like a road trip really up to like 6 or 7 hours. So the 13 hours it was a bit much to and from. Uh, but man, I am probably one of the more seize the day people you'll meet. And for me, I was like, if I can go there, I can be in the studio, and I know I have this 1 week before baseball season starts for my kids. I have to, I have to lean into the opportunity, however that looks, and be open to being open, and lots of cool things can come from that. So, and they did.
How was Johnny
So
Manziel?
he's cool as shit. Like he was so approachable, and you can tell people who are either just feeding you a line. Like you could just tell he was a very genuine person, and the way he embraced the fans, like he was just super cool about it. There was people that came from, like we had two people that came in from Cleveland just for him, and I was like, that's cool. Like he's not even play anymore,
I know.
and really left on weird terms, as we all seen on his Netflix special. But he's gonna have a cool comeback story. I'm here for everyone's comeback story. I think it's cool. Like we all go through peaks and valleys, and his valley was just a lot more public than some of ours have been. Um, but he was just embracing everyone in the room, and he wasn't supposed to sign anything, and he was signing the most random stuff on the way out. Like this dude had a Charizard card he signed, and people were trying to get him to sign his Zen can, and he's like, "Well, if I didn't have two left in there, I'd probably do it." Uh,
I love it.
no,
It
he was fun.
it's interesting, right? Like, I mean, we fail to realize that like life is quite long, you know? It's like, and so how do you define a person by, I don't know, a 5 year period or a 6 year period when, I mean,
Yeah,
realistically, he could have a whole nother life, like another 30 years and be known
yeah,
for something completely different.
yep. No, it's going to be great to see because I see now too. I think he's really trying to make a comeback for the NFL, and he's being very public about workout sessions and trainers that he's trying to bring on because he's a physical specimen. I mean, if you go back and look at his tape from Texas A&M, I remember watching his freshman year and being like, "Who the fuck is this kid?" Like he's a freak of nature, and the fact that he was able to do it with almost like a photographic memory. Was it Cliff Kingsbury was even saying like, "Yeah, I was always mad because like he never looked at the playbook because he knew it when he looked at it, he knew it, and then he walked away and then had time to slough off."
Do you think his
Um,
career would have gone differently if they had that NIL deal that they have now, you know, with all the
yeah,
college athletes and
sure. Yeah, because he could have been a lot more public about the money he was getting, and it seems now, and maybe because of people like him paving the way, there's been enough people dropping the ball in their younger adolescent years that maybe now with the NIL money, there's probably expansions out to like different types of managers that you surround yourself people with because like okay, NIL money is great, but if you want to have a career in the NFL, like you can't lose your lunch here.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think that like I imagine you're making this college millions upon millions of dollars and you're getting nothing. You know, like you got to build up some sort of resentment there. And like yeah, eventually if you go to the NFL, you eventually get that bag. But like it's just it's hard to fathom that kind of transaction, right? And like I think that we're just kind of conditioned to accept like those kind of circumstances, but it is really great to see some of that wealth get redistributed to like the people who are actually putting in the work, like
Yeah.
there's like crazy TV rights and jerseys and sell out stadiums of 100,000 regularly, man.
Yeah.
Like college teams are some of the most diehard fans, period.
Yeah. These
Period.
non-for-profit institutions that have
Yeah.
billion-dollar plus endowments.
Yes.
I don't know why I owe Big Brother anything for my school. Like,
So good.
and yet I do. I don't know, man. It's cool. And I go back to like giving his story and others like his story. I give them a lot of grace because I think if I were 18 and I went anywhere and everyone knew who I was and the prettiest women were throwing themselves at me and I had money for days and people offering me free stuff, like, I don't know. We all can think we have a good head on our shoulders, but like it's in none of our position to judge like that we would have done it any differently. I might have gone harder than him, honestly. Um,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I was an idiot up until like 26, 27. I mean, some would argue I'm still an idiot, So
I'm still
like,
an idiot.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Right? So like, I mean, you're
I just
right.
have more tact in certain moments now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, to your point, like you never know what you do in certain situations, right? It's a lot easier to just kind of cast judgment than it is to empathize and to
Right.
kind of like attempt to relate to someone else's situation.
Yeah.
What's up next for you?
Goodness. The only other like two things I really have, I have three things on the books now as of yesterday. So Hobby Slam, I'm going to be doing content for them in Miami.
Love it.
Uh,
I'll see you there.
my June's going to be legit. My June's going to be so much fun. I'm taking my boys out of the country to Panama for the first time, and then 2 weeks later, I'm taking them to Miami with me. And I have some really fun, clever ideas I'll pass by at some point about how I want them to be integrated in like the interview process, like a very Miami thing. It's a thing. But
You're
I got Hobby
very
Slam.
you guys are among the minority in terms of passport, man. It's something about the United States. You guys don't like passports or something.
I love traveling.
Okay.
I've been to most of uh, North, Central, and South America. I've been all 50 states, and like I'm trying to. For me, the kind of like teacher I am as a father is immersive experience. So that's a really important thing for me with my kids. So they've been jumping on planes since they were 2.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot for me. I'm excited for them that they can start holding their bags now. That's super cool. Like I
Yeah.
remember like running through the Nashville airport when they were 2 and 4, and I would have like all of our bags on my arm, like as I'm also trying to like herd cats in front of me,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people are
yeah.
looking at me like this poor sucker, and I'm like, this too shall pass.
I love
But
it.
no, so I've got Hobby Slam, then the National, obviously, the great pilgrimage for all of us. We'll be doing that. Um, and then I just signed up for, I want to say it's November 2nd. B Sports Cards, the promoter who does why am I drawing a blank? Shiv Shawana. He also is now implementing this once a year in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That last year was like on Black Friday. This year he's pushed it back a week. So I got table space for that yesterday. Every show that he touches is such a field of dreams situation where like it'll be in very unlikely places or you'd be like, oh, and it's packed. He'll have just like quality dealers for days, quality patrons walking around the whole time, and it's a good show for buying, selling, trading. So
I
that might be
love
the
it.
that might be the next one I set up at. Honestly, that's like how different I wanted this year to look. Um, but I'll still be going to others, and I'm mad that I couldn't go to the expo in Toronto. But gosh, that's really high on my list for me to have some shenanigans up north with you there sometime.
Yeah, I listen, this one's gonna be an absolute, it's gonna be chaos, like in a good way. And it's a lot
Yeah.
warmer in in April than it is usually in November, but
Hmm.
November one is where we cook. So if you want to come to one,
The the November
November.
one's the good one,
They're both great, no joke. But
but that's the one I need to get to.
November is like like it's like right when the season starts. So like there's a big buzz. Like
Okay.
you get playoffs in April. So like that's really good. Like so you'll have like NBA playoffs, you'll have NHL
Yeah.
playoffs, NFL off season. So like most people will probably be buying NFL. But it's fun to go watch games. Like I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about the expo is that teams like especially like the Leafs will probably be in the playoffs. So like most of the people who are at the expo are gonna go straight from the expo to like go watch the Leafs playoffs.
Okay.
Like
That'll
which
be
is
great.
like yeah, it's really cool. Which doesn't happen in November. November's just kind of like a regular season game.
No,
But
I'll have to look into those November dates.
yeah,
I'd love to make that happen. I'm trying to think though. Yes, I mean I'm getting into a lot of podcasts here coming up, which is fun. Just like with my my bandwidth being a little bit different going into coaching season. I'm just trying to find ways to stay active and still find ways to network and get in front of new people. But if anyone, I mean, I have a couple opportunities right now to maybe pivot into the hobby full time. So we'll see what goes from that. But anyone listen to this, if you have any
look at you
needs,
go, buddy. Look at
I
you
know it. I
go.
know a guy.
Look at you go, man. I love that. And I love seeing good people get good opportunities.
We'll see. We'll see. Well, I mean, like it's an opportunity. I want to actualize those opportunities, but it's nice to be able to have a seat at the table. Unfortunate for any of those that come along the way. But
What do you collect?
well, I brought one of these because I've talked to you about this when we were in Atlanta, and I got two recently for my set. My UD. So I'm building out a set. I do a lot of this and that for all different sports, but the one set that I'm working on with my kids right now is the UD Exquisite. It's 0304. It's my favorite card design ever. Hold on, we got a nasty glare here. But I got two recently. They don't. I've gone to my last three card shows. I've seen zero of these in person. And
Yeah,
when you and I were in Atlanta, we talked about this. But like that card design is just ridiculous. From
gorgeous.
0304 UD Exquisite Basketball, they brought it back in
No,
09 and then
yeah,
every year since, where they're integrating it into every sport, and it's mostly Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. And yeah, what makes this interesting for me is that aside from liking the design, I really have fanatical interest in most other sports. So like this one kind of like lets me collect all sports at once, and they can still kind of like matchy. So my OCD can be stroked. But the one that I got yesterday, you'll be most excited about a lot more than that duck. Is I'm gonna take this out.
I mean, that patch was filthy, though. I'm not even gonna argue.
Yep, there's no argument there.
Yeah,
Swayman, I got Swayman yesterday.
nice. That's filthy.
That's filthy, and like, look at it. It's got like just enough foliage to be
I was gonna say
interesting.
the hollow background is my favorite part.
The hollow background, and then it's such a beautiful contrast with like the plain white and the black. It's just it has everything I love about cards right here. So that's what I do. I do some memorabilia. Like if I find stuff that's interesting, that's pretty much what we're collecting right now.
I love
Yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
that.
I gotta do better if I'm like doing a retrospective on my 2024 already. I really gotta get away from opening wax. I always lose. It's fun, and I do small doses of it, but like I made some profit recently going, and I had some going from the Johnny Manziel night, and then a couple days later I was down in Cranks in Chattanooga, Tennessee, helping them with content for their trade night, and I took like all this profit that I brought with me and I threw it at like baseball wax. Like, oh, we're going into the new season, and like right now is the time to like pull anything, and I didn't pull jack shot, and I did it on an IG live. Y'all got to see that to the dome, and I was like, I gotta stop. I gotta get away from that. Like it's fun to rip, but like maybe I get my fix from observing others.
I mean, that's my game plan. That's what I do, man.
I
I
have to, yeah,
just do not rip.
yeah,
Yeah, very seldom do I rip. I just
yeah,
always a losing battle. And I'd rather
yeah.
just like know what I'm putting my money into. Cause like even if I put my money into something like tanks in like let's say it's down like 30-40% in a few months. My worst case scenario is like I sell at a loss, which is 30-40%, but that's still like 95% more than I'm getting by ripping
Yeah.
wax in most cases.
Hmm.
Like, or I just hold it until it comes back up, depending on what it is, you know? So like, or you just hold it because like that you like that. You like owning it,
Yeah.
right? So it's like for me, it's like a win-win-win. And if I'm gonna spend money on something, I might as well know exactly what I'm kind of getting myself into.
That's
Now that
right.
being said, like I mean, I ripped before, and that's why I was like, I'm done with this shit. Like I'm done.
Yeah. Well,
Ain't
what was
no
the one
way.
what was the one you did in Philly? You did the UD Clear.
Yeah, man, and
The,
that's what I mean. Like,
well,
I don't even rip,
yeah.
and so when I do, I get skunked. I'm like, this is
Right.
all the reason not to. Yeah, I hit a clear cut, and I
I
ended up with a Troy Terry autograph out of
yeah.
like
I
chronology, $6. I was
yeah. Yeah, it's such a cheap price point though, because what is it, like $85 a box. Like I saw two of them left in the room in Nashville, and I almost FaceTimed you. I'm like, all right, let's see if we can get better like this time. I was like, nope, I'm gonna get the same luck.
yeah, and I was with someone who ended up like, he's like, oh, I saw you rip clear cut. So like at the Philly show, I ended up seeing him again because like that was in oh gosh, where were we? Louisville. We were in Kentucky. And then I ended up
Yeah.
seeing him at the Philly show, and he's like, man, like ever since I saw you rip that box, like I've been wanting to rip clear cut. And so he's like, I bought 3 boxes and like, look at this hit. And he ends up showing me like, probably like a $250 card. And I was like, damn it, man. Like this guy just like probably 3 or 4 times. And he's like, I'm going to sell it and then buy more boxes. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. He did it anyway, bought 3 more boxes, ended up with another card. This time it was probably like a $500 hit. And I was like, you just finished, like cut it
Just
off
stop on
right
top.
now. You know, like just
Stop
like
on top.
stop putting your money on black, please. Like just from
Yeah.
experience of someone who's gotten killed on green so many times.
Yeah.
No,
Is that your game? It's roulette. Roulette's your
I
go-to.
mean, it's all right. I mean, I'd rather play blackjack, truthfully, but
Same.
again, it's like there's too much chance when you're just spinning this stupid little ball.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. Brother, I want to give you the opportunity and the floor to plug whatever you want, and please, channels, whether it's like people, go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to plug positivity. I'm going to lean into that. Guys, change your narrative. There's a lot of, I wouldn't even say drama inside, but it's just like just the way we our outlook and how we talk amongst ourselves, and just like be more conscious about that. I'm going to plug my channel at I Saw Sasquatch on Instagram. That's where I do really most of my content these days. And yeah, if you guys have any opportunities for partnering, collaborating on content for this industry, man, hit me up when Code doesn't respond to you.
No, you hit him up first. I love it. Yeah, you heard him. Please go follow I Saw Sasquatch. If you have the opportunity to check out the 1-of-1 Bronny James, although it's probably finished at this point, but that's okay. You can
It's so
still
sweet.
go check it out. And team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Cardboard Coach, featuring Ryan. Let us know what your favorite part was in the comment section below. Please go follow Ryan, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Coach Co and I Saw a Sasquatch are out of here. Peace.